Hello. I have tried to record this video many times, but I am back again and I'm gonna try again. And today is a day in September, so you know what that means. It means I have finished the books that I read in August, and so I will be doing my August wrap up. Thank you! Thank you, thank you. So, August wrap up, I read 14 books, and that is if you include volumes as books. And so, seven of them are comic book volumes, but I will be counting each volume as a book. So, technicalities. So, let's just jump straight into it. And also, I realized that in my previous videos, I don't really give a summary of what the book is about. And I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but there will be, I will try to give summaries as best as I can, but just know that, like, it's not in my mind to explain someone what the plot is. And I know that's a very important aspect to book buying for a lot of people, but for me, I like to consume my media very blind and not really knowing what it's about beforehand. So I just kind of roll with that, and I kind of assume everyone does that too when I know not everyone does that. But you'll just have to roll with the punches, because that's just how I go with all of my interests. And yeah, and good thing is that I have my Goodreads right up here, so I can see what I rated it. So you'll be having accurate ratings, so Editor Tay does not have to work that hard. Book number 1 that I finished in the second day of August, and that is 19 Love Songs by David Levithan. And what I love about this is that it's written by David Levithan, he is a YA author that I really, really love, because he was one of my introductions to LGBT love stories, specifically LGBT YA novels. And I really like this book. So 19 Love Songs is basically 19 short stories in a book. And most of them, I will say, is Achillean, but it does also include trans and sapphic stories. Just very little. Most of it is Achillean. So the thing about this book is that I love the first few short stories. The first one that I really liked was Quiz Bowl Antichrist. And the second one is my absolute favorite in this entire book, and it is the quarterback and the cheerleader. But I think that within the second half of this book, it kind of fell off. Like, it wasn't as good as the first few short stories, because I feel like this first short story, the Quiz Bowl Antichrist, it was really, really good. I think that it was a really strong first short story, but as it kind of progressed, I just didn't really enjoy it that much. I still enjoyed it, but not as much as I did the first few stories. So that's just like a thing. But overall, I really like this book. I think that it was a really nice short read. It was heartwarming, and this has been the first YA book that I've read in a while, because I've just been reading a lot of classics, and oh my goodness, it's like a what is it called? Breath of fresh air. Yes, I was about to say fresh of breath air. So not good. So this second book I don't really want to give audience to, but I'm gonna have to for the August wrap up. I'm just gonna try and keep this very, very short for this book. So this book, The Danish Girl by David Ebershoff. I don't know what came over me to buy this. I know the reviews of the movie, but I just thought maybe the book isn't that bad. But spoiler alert, the book is kind of bad. So this tells the story of the transition of a woman named Lily, and I just kind of really didn't like how Lily was handled in the story at all. Like, the only positive thing that I could say about this book is maybe like the little romance, like the little love parts between Greta and Lily. But aside from that, this book was treacherous to read in terms of the perspective that it wanted to portray. And also, like, the writing is just really long and bland. I did not like reading this. I forced myself to read 100 pages of this in one day, because I couldn't think of reading this any much longer. So I give this book a 2 out of 5 on Goodreads, but I honestly think it deserves like a 3 out of 10. So the next book is it's a fairly short book, and it is Matchless, a Christmas story. So this is basically a little interpretation of the Hans Christian Andersen classic, The Little Match Girl, and is written by Gregory Maguire. And inside is just a little short story, and there are little, what do you want to call it? Pen sketches of the story as you go along, and it's pretty cute. It's just a really short, good read, and everything you'd expect out of a Hans Christian Andersen like classic. So there's not much to say about this, and I don't really know how to explain the plot to you. So if you want to, you can just go read it. And yeah, in Goodreads, I gave this a 6 out of 10 because this was a really cute read, but it wasn't that memorable to me, so I couldn't rate it any higher. So the next books that I read was actually Soule's run of Daredevil, but I only read the first 3 volumes, and I have 2 of the volumes right here with me, but the first volume, Chinatown, I couldn't find it, so the first volume is... what is the name? So the first volume's name is Supersonic. This is the first one. And then the third volume's name is Dark Art. And the thing about this run is that it leaves you kind of clueless as to what's going on. It doesn't really expand much, and it just kind of throws you into the world. And I understand that's kind of the nature of these comics that require continuity from previous like runs. But also, I think the writing was just not that great in this run. He is no longer working at Nelson and Murdoch. He is working for the government, and so he has no like control over his lawyer practices. And he tries to balance that with his vigilante job, which no one knows that he has. And also, he has a mentee. So yeah, I think my opinion about this run for the first 3 volumes is just that like I'm still waiting for it to pick up. I think in the 3rd volume it started to pick up a little bit, but I think that's it takes a little bit. So the first volume I rated it a 4 out of 10. Second volume I rated it a 6 out of 10, and for the 3rd volume I rated it also a 6 out of 10. Now the next book was my favorite read of the month, and it was Stoner by John Williams. Now, oh my god, I love this book so much. You can see, like, I'll definitely show you a flip through of this book. I have a lot of tabs, and I have a lot of annotations. Oh my god, I love reading this book so much. Oh, I feel like I'm now in some kind of stoner cult, and I don't mean that in a weed kind of way. I mean it in a this guy kind of way, William Stoner. And so this book is basically telling the story of a man named William Stoner, and basically you just follow him throughout his life from a child up to, and actually not since a child, but when he is a university student and all the way up until he has died. So you're just basically following him from a young man to dead. So yeah, but what I really love about this story is that it's not anything extraordinary, but there is like a very grounded feeling to life that is here. It's pretty straightforward, but every time you read it, you're like, oh, okay. Well, am I supposed to feel that way? Because it does make you confront very scary things about life. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but sometimes you gotta put the book down and you just gotta like stare out of a window and just wonder, I don't know, what is my life? And you just kind of sit there because you don't really know. But I love this book so much. Oh, I seriously love this book so much. I enjoyed reading it so much. I read it pretty fast and I tabbed it a lot because I just really, really prize this book. And I'm so glad because I actually only started reading this book because it was just in my parents' like little library, and I just saw the title of the book and I thought Stoner, okay. And then I read the back and it said that he is he's like a literature student. So I thought like, oh my god, I'm a literature student too. Why don't I read this? So It was a great pleasure to read, and I gave this is my first book that I gave a 5 out of 5, which is a 10 out of 10 because I absolutely love this, and I acknowledge that this is not going to be for everyone, but it was definitely for me, so I love this book so much. I just cannot tell you how much I love this book, so I'm going to put it down before I start rambling a little bit more. To continue, I will be talking about Mark Waid's Daredevil run, the 2014 one, and it is the one that I thought that I had to read prior to the Soule run, and so I started reading it, and I read all 4 volumes, which consists of about 18 issues. And the premise of this one is that everyone now knows the identity of Matt Murdock as Daredevil, and he is now navigating life as someone who is known to be Daredevil and Matt Murdock at the same time. And I really like this run, honestly. The art style is really popish, really cartoonish, and the colors are just boom. And I really like that in a comic, which greatly differs to Soule's Daredevil, where the art is more scratchy, it's dark, it's kind of grim, and so reading Waid's Daredevil was much more exciting. But I will say that it does handle like heavy topics, uh, like Matt's depression, and also I think that Waid's run of Daredevil, this specific one, the 2014 one, because I know he has a longer one. I really like this because it does also explore more of Matt's behaviors and his thoughts and his character in general, because he is a charmer. Matt Murdock is a man of charm, and we can see how it affects his daily life when he can't charm someone, and well, not really can't charm someone, but more of like how it affects his life now that he's not both Matt Murdock and Daredevil to the public. And I don't really know how to say this, but yeah, I really enjoyed the exploration of Matt's character in this run. And okay, wait, let me pull up Goodreads. And I rated almost all of them, all of the volumes, a 4 out of 5, so that means an 8 out of 10. But for the second volume, I would like to rate it about a 7 out of 10. I think there it was a little bit rocky, but it is talking about Daredevil's mother, and so I thought that was really interesting. But I think for that volume, it just didn't really hit me. But all the other volumes I really liked, and yeah, those are my thoughts on Waid's Daredevil. And so the next book that I read, I don't have in physical copy because I read it as an ebook, and I read it in 2 days. And so I read half of it on one day and the other half of it the next day. And I read the first half of it on the train. But I was on the fence on whether to read this as an ebook or as a physical copy. And at the end of the day, I opted for, okay, maybe if I like the ebook enough, then I will get the physical copy in the future in case I want to reread. And that book is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think that the storyline is really great. I like the characterization of the characters, of especially Evelyn Hugo, and it does discuss like important issues, like the biphobia that Evelyn Hugo faces when she's with Celia. And just to summarize the book, it is about this woman named Evelyn Hugo who is really, really like popular and people love her, and she's like renowned. And in her history, she has had 7 husbands, and that is a lot of husbands. 7 husbands is a lot. And so one day she meets this one reporter, Monique, and she tells her that she wants to divulge her entire life story. And we go on her adventure of like learning about the backstory of her 7 husbands, because previously she has never told anybody about these relationships, and she kept her private life pretty private, her personal life very private and out of public eye. She just kind of orchestrated a lot of it for public eye, so as a movie star does. And yeah, this book, I really liked it, but I will say that it didn't like really strike a chord in me. It was really good. I think that it is pretty memorable, but it's not personally significant to me. So I will have to rate this an 8 out of 10. It is good though. I think that is a good read and a breath of fresh air, obviously, for me. And yeah, I do think that I might reread it in the future. And hopefully, I'll get the physical book. The next book is the book that I put in my August TBR, and that is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. And see, I had a little bit of trouble reading this because it is fantasy, so I did listen to an audio, like a reading of this book by a library on YouTube. You can search it up. You can just search up like Stardust audiobook and it'll show up. And I I still don't know how I feel about this book, honestly. Like, okay, you can see that I have a ton of tabs. Like, that is a large amount of tabs. And I'm not sure if I mean, I think I love it. I think I love it. But I wouldn't say that it's like close to a favorite, like how Stoner would be. But I do think that this has made a lasting impression on me. It is fantasy. I think it's trying to lean into like those folk fairy tales, and I can see it, honestly. And what I like about this book, there's not really one thing I can pinpoint about what I like about this book. I just think that there are certain lines that I really resonate with, and I think just going on a journey with learning, with like the world building and seeing how magical and fantastical this place is, with also with its horrors and everything, it brought like a unique feel to the fairy tale genre. And I am aware that Neil Gaiman has written this as a fairy tale for adults, and so I think that it is fitting to the genre that he intended to write for. And yeah, I know that this has a movie, and I wasn't really keen on watching the movie, but then I found out that Charlie Cox plays the main character, so I'm gonna need to watch it. I'm sorry. I'm weak. But yeah. Overall, I think that this book was pretty magical, and I quite liked it. It's a fantasy, so I don't really know if my feelings are like that strong, but I will say I did enjoy this. So I gave this I want to say that I gave this a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, but I will give this about like a 7.5 out of 10. So, and finally, my last book for August, it is a small little penguin modern classic, and I've been wanting to read this for a while, and it is the Albert Camus Create Dangerously. And these are a collection of speeches. They're just 3 speeches, and I really quite like this. I read this because a friend of mine, shout out to you, Mimi, she recommended to me Albert Camus, and so I wanted to take their recommendation, but I couldn't find any of his other books, so I just wanted to get a taste of Albert Camus first, and so I opted for the Penguin Modern Classic. And I like this. I think the last speech was a little bit harder for me to read, but the first 2 speeches, especially the first one, Create Dangerously, struck a chord in me. It did. And I think that with this little modern classic, I will be progressing into searching more about Camus' books and what he's written, because I really like this, and I think that it'll be a great exploration. And I've seen a lot of those people who are like, are you Camus or are you Kafka? And so I'm really curious. Okay, so maybe I will also read Kafka just to like even the playing ground. So those were all the books that I read in August. I'm just gonna pull up all the physical copies that I can pick up. I'm not gonna pick up the graphic novels because they're too big. They're too big for me to hold. But I only have 6 books here, but I have read more. So thank you for watching. These are all just the books that I read in August, and yeah, I think it's pretty successful reading month. I did a lot of reading, and I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of these, while I didn't enjoy some of them. And that's okay, because sometimes life is just balance. And yeah, I had fun. I did. So yeah. Bye.